Let's get a happy question, as I said before, to start things out. This question was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from the noted wrestling historian Tom Burke.
Tom Burke. And as a matter of fact, he's another person. He sent me a package a while back. Tom, if you're listening, and I'm going to send you something in return, but of course I'm always behind and have not done it yet. But I love Tom Burke. What a historian and collector.
And he has, along with someone like you, one of the great wrestling offices still out there. He has like a mini museum in his house.
Yes. I wouldn't even call it mini.
Well, it's just a museum. That's true. That's true.
There you go.
That's true. It's actually one of the biggest wrestling museums out there, technically. His question is, name 5 wrestlers or promoters and managers who you never got a chance to meet that you wish you had.
Oh, my God. Gee, just 5 promoters, from anywhere in history? Or just in my lifetime? Or how could we narrow this down? I mean, my God, I would have loved to, sit down and fucking, discuss goddamn booking wrestling philosophy with Toots Mondt or whatever. But how can we narrow this down a little bit? Who have I...
You never met Brody, right?
Yes, I met Brody. But he came into Dallas one night while we were there to visit the Fantastics, because Bobby Fulton and he were friends from Japan. So I met him technically, but he wasn't working on the card. And it was just, hi, hello, nothing major. I'm trying to think of people that I have not met, major wrestling personalities that I've not cut. Every once in a while, I make mention of those because a question comes in about one of them just at random. And I say, I never actually met him.
Did you ever meet Frank Tunney?
Never met Frank Tunney. Met Jack Tunney, obviously. Didn't meet Frank Tunney, the Toronto promoter. I never got a chance. Obviously, this would have to be the one. What the fuck am I thinking about? Never got the chance to meet Eddie Graham. Or work for him, or just, never actually saw a show in person that he was responsible for, because I never went to Florida. And then when I got in the business, by the time I got there, he was gone. So that would be a big one.
Did you ever meet Nick Goulas?
No. There you go. Never met Nick Goulas and never met Roy Welch. So there's 1, 2, 3. Just because I guarantee you, I did not hear any names of any wrestlers more in the formative years of my fandom watching television here in Louisville than I heard the names Nick Goulas and Roy Welch, but mainly because of Nick, because he had the announcers mention them constantly. Their names were on everything. The NWA logo, Nick Goulas Welch Wrestling Enterprises. He did his own local promos when I first started watching the show. Even though it was Jarrett's town, they did the promos on, I believe, Wednesday mornings in Nashville at the TV station. Scott Teal might be able to correct me. But Nick hosted them all himself until, finally Jarrett started, having Lance do some for the Louisville TV that aired up here. But still, we got Nick's interviews pretty much until Jarrett split off from him. And Nick was a glory hound. Whereas I never met Roy Welch, because if he did go to any of the matches, you never even saw him. He would go to Louisville, Jarrett told me, but he'd be back in the locker room. He'd be in Memphis, but he wouldn't go out in front of the people. Whereas Nick went to Nashville and Birmingham, and he was standing out in the front lobby. Bobby Eaton used to tell me, and so did Teeny. On a big house, a big night, when they're trying to get the people in to start, Nick would be out in front at the Boutwell in Birmingham or goddamn Nashville Fairgrounds. He'd be cussing people. Go on, hurry up, get the hell in there. Go on, hurry up. Go this way, go that way, boy. What's the matter with you? And it was just, they were so completely different. You never saw or heard from Roy Welch. He was just in the locker room, and Nick was constantly putting his name out in front of people.
What about Tony Lanza?
The noted wrestling photographer. No, never met Tony Lanza. I don't know that I would put him on the. I mean, he was a wonderful photographer. I don't know I'd put him on the list of 5 people that I would desperately want to meet in the wrestling business. I'm trying to think. Also, let's see. Jesus Christ, I got to meet Buddy Rogers at Arezzi's Weekend of Champions. Didn't get to sit down and pick his brain for 6 years or whatever. Give me some more ideas.
Haystack Calhoun.
I actually met Haystacks Calhoun.
Really?
He worked for whatever reason. He was booked in the Memphis territory for a week in, I think, March of 1977. He was on a card in Louisville. I have a nice posed picture of him in the ring, and I got to shake his hand as he was walking by. And that had to be like the year before he retired, I would think.
Antonio Inoki.
Never met Antonio Inoki. Nor Giant Baba before you go there. Actually, no, yes, I have. What am I talking about?
He was at the Crockett Cup.
He was at the Crockett Cup, and he was at a couple of... I met him at the Crockett Cup. But he was at a couple of Carolina's events when they would go through and the World Pro Wrestling show would be shooting, but... I'm fucking Jim Cornette. This is goddamn Giant Baba. I wasn't seeking him out. This was before that crazy handshake thing started. I was like, if Giant Baba needs me, much like the fucking, Prime Minister of England or whoever the fuck, he'll call for me. And they were in meetings with Crockett and etc. He and whoever came with him, so I didn't bother them. And this was before everybody had a camera in their pocket where you could have pictures taken. So...
Maybe I'm just not thinking of when and where, but did you ever meet Vern?
No. There you go. There's another one. Never met Vern Gagne. We were never in the same place at the same time. Heard plenty of stories and obviously, spent a lot of time with Nick Bockwinkel and some of the guys that worked up there for so long, but never got to meet Vern. So I'd put that up there because goddamn, he was one of the 5 biggest wrestling stars of the modern era since television began, when you have to think about it overall, with his influence and how he was one of the highest paid athletes in the United States in the 50s. He was one of the 3 biggest wrestling stars because of the U.S. title and the Dumont Network, Chicago. He started his own company that became as big as geographically as any territory ever in the United States. He was world champion of his own company, but that company ran and competed for longer. It was one of the first territories started, one of the last to go out of business, and had national TV for a number of years in that time. So, yeah, Vern was fucking huge.
Mike LaBelle.
Oh, come on. Now we're getting... No, I never met fucking Treacherous Phillips either. But we're getting awful fucking,
Mario Galento.
No, never met Mario Galento. That would have been strange.
Buddy Fuller?
Yes. I've not only met Buddy Fuller, I've taken pictures of Buddy Fuller and actually seen Buddy Fuller wrestle. And he looked and wrestled just like Ron and Robert. Tall, long arms, long legs, stiff punches, and just a fucking old... every time he laid his hands on you, it looked like it hurt. He was one of those old-time fucking guys that shit was going to look legitimate. I watched him with, I think it was, oh, goddamn, who was it that first time he came in? It was with Barnes and Dundee. In 75, he looked like Dundee should have been bald-headed when Buddy Fuller grabbed one handful of his hair. Come to think of it, I shouldn't have. Ron and Robert were actually a lot easier to work with probably than Buddy. I don't mean he was hard to work with. He was just painful to work with because that shit looked good, boy.
You obviously never met the Grand Wizard.
No, I did not. Never met the Grand Wizard.
Vince Sr.?
No, I did not.
You worked on a show with him, but did you meet the Sheik?
Yes, not only I have met the Sheik a couple of different times because I not only worked the Kobo show with him, but I was on an independent show with him in the early 90s. Where was I? Have a picture with him. I marked out there. Somebody, but Hildebrand was there. Mark Curtis. I said, you got your camera. I got to get a picture with the Sheik. And I did promos for him when he did that, the match in the Kobo for Crockett. They said, go, I said, I actually brought it up. I said, can I mention the Sheik's match? Because they didn't have the heel side to speak for him. And I said, yeah. And I did the promos, and Kevin Sullivan, because he was friends with Sheik, he came in the next week or whatever. So I talked to Sheik. He saw the promos because it was for Detroit, the local station. He loved them. And I'm getting goosebumps right now, right? The Sheik liked my promos. Holy, is this, what universe is this? He said, here's his number. He said, call him. Holy fuck. I did. I called him and asked for Sheik like I was told to. They said, don't ask for Ed. He'll fucking hang up on you. Is Sheik there? I told him who I was. He was hard to understand on the phone because he talked so quick. But he loved the promos because he always loved having a manager that would talk for him and kind of set the fucking atmosphere. And I did the whole fucking thing. It's like Halloween early, the night he came home. The Sheik returns to the Kobo. Is anyone safe? That type of thing. He loved that shit. So I actually got to in a remote way manage the Sheik one time.
Mark Lewin.
I have met Mark Lewin. Where was it? God damn it.
Yeah, where would it have been? He didn't appear in Dallas when you were there. He was already done in Crockett by the time you got to Crockett.
You know what? It was at a goddamn fan fest here in the last 15 years somewhere. That's where I met Mark Lewin. I think. Because it was just quick. As I recall. Kevin Sullivan loves him. He used to love to work with Mark.
Before the WWF show, I think it was In Your House where they brought back the Legends of St. Louis Wrestling. Before that show, had you ever met Sam Mushnick or Jack Briscoe?
Oh, God. Well, I'd never met. That's the only time to this day I ever met Sam Mushnick. I met I had Jack Briscoe in my car in 1981. I took him to the airport after a match in Memphis. He had a late night flight. No, I first met Briscoe I took pictures of, I didn't get to meet him, but I took pictures of his match with Ron Fuller here in Louisville. And then I met him the second time I saw him in 77 in Memphis when he worked with Lawler. I met him briefly just to shake hands, but then several times when he would come in to the Tennessee territory, before I got into business, he was on the card, but I met him in either taking pictures or taking him to the airport. So yeah, just like Jack, or just like Jerry, rather, just, a great guy, had the fucking rumbly voice, but was soft spoken, very nice, matter of fact, very, high quality human being, which you would have had to been to hold that fucking belt and work that schedule for, what was it, almost 4 years. No, he was almost 3. Dory was almost 4. We went over that in a previous episode.
All right, well, I think because I'm racking my brain, I can't think of any other major names of the last 40 years. I mean, you met Hogan when he first started. You obviously knew Flair and all the top NWA guys. You finally got to work with Piper in 94.
Yeah. I'll work on that, Tom. I'll make a list and I'll include it in my package when I get back to you.
Who from wrestling's past, from before your time as a fan, if you had to pick 5 people to sit down and talk with, who would they be?
Oh, good Lord. Dory Funk Sr.
Ooh, good one.
Because, well, when you think about it, and he's the one who trained Eddie Graham. The lineage actually goes back to, you got to think that Dory Funk Sr. was probably the booking genius of modern times. Because even though Eddie Graham gets the credit, where did he learn that stuff? Yes, he learned from Dr. Jerry Graham and from Vince Sr. in Capitol Wrestling. But the idea of creating believable conflict between two people and giving the people a reason to come back over and over again in a territory like West Texas for all those years and having that kind of reputation, Dory Funk Sr. had to be a master of psychology. Small markets, but drew money for years. Weekly towns, out in the middle of nowhere, but some of the biggest stars were either came through there, were trained there, or sent there to learn. He had so much influence, the smallest territory in terms of geography and probably markets in the NWA, but both of his sons were champion, and he had to fucking vote. He had a vote as one of the senior NWA members for years and years. The Sheik would come in and work for him. He could get fucking Vince Sr. on the phone. Eddie Graham was one of his disciples. He had somebody in every territory that he had touched or trained or was beholden to him in some kind of way. And all he wanted to do was run fucking his Amarillo territory because that's where he lived. And he did it for his first match there was in 1948, and he was the fucking boss when he died in 73. So, that would be a good one. God, let's see. Fuck, I never met Antonina Rocca either. I don't know if I'd want to sit down and talk with him.
Yeah, probably wouldn't understand him.
Right, it would be a bunch of bullshit about how great he was. Let me work on that one too, for fuck's sake.
Okay.
Goddamn, because then I'm just going to blur, and then a bunch of people are going to tweet me and say, well, what about so-and-so? And it will be so fucking apropos, and I didn't think of it. Oh, and by the way, we were talking the other day about Jannetty, about wrestlers that killed people and still had a career, and 8,642 people tweeted Snuka. We didn't bring him up. So, because you have those brain farts when, on the sperm of the moment.
He's maybe wrestling's most notorious murderer who had a career after the fact.
And we didn't, the obvious choice. That's like name a brand of tissue. And we said Puffs instead of Kleenex.
All right. Well, in a Puff,
I'll tell you what, here's the thing. Here is the thing. And you've brought this up with this subject. All these people, because people have asked me, who would you like to? I would have loved to have managed Bockwinkel and Stevens. I would have loved to manage the Fargo brothers in Madison Square Garden against Rocca and Perez. If you could take different times and moments in history and put them all together, where somebody that was around in the 80s, somebody was around in the 50s. Imagine the dream card that is in my Behind the Curtain graphic novel, where I had a Time Machine Wrestling Federation and took all the great names and matched them up to see what would happen. Londos versus Cena, and on and on. Well, you can almost do that now. You could even do this with wrestling if you wanted to. The folks at paintyourlife.com, now that I'm thinking about it, could fix us up.